I'll just tell you, we've been to the bottom of the oceans, we've been to ancient Greek mythology, we've been to the past and the future of Flash, into the digital world with Cyborg. We still got to go to space.
So the Green Lanterns and the Green Lantern Corps will be coming to join the Justice League universe.
That's every kid's dream, see all those Justice League characters together. Green Lantern's a big part of it.
Oh my god, YouTubers, they finally confirmed they're doing Green Lantern Corps, although it sounds like they always planned on doing it, so I'll explain what's going on. There is a new round of the Flash Ring giveaway going on. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a Green Lantern comment on this video. We'll say, like, leave the person that you want them to cast as Hal Jordan and John Stewart. Be sure to click that bell to enable alerts so that you don't miss anything. So many questions, this is so great. I'm so excited that they're finally doing this again, and it sounds like they're gonna take their time, get it right. So there are a couple things we know, a couple things we don't know, so just counting down. Number 10, they call it Lethal Weapon in Space. What does that mean? So if you haven't watched that movie, it's actually really good. It was made by Richard Donner, the man behind the Christopher Reeve Superman, the good Christopher Reeve Superman films. So there's this really cool history with DC Comics, Geoff Johns, and Richard Donner that goes way beyond the DC Comics films, but that's kind of another story. Mel Gibson and Danny Glover's characters are two old gunslinger-type cops who are forced to answer the call again. So that makes it sound like the Green Lantern Corps movie is not going to be a straight-up origin story. They'll have to have elements of the origin, like Jason Momoa said the Aquaman movie will be all about his history and where he's going next. So it's the same thing with the Green Lantern Corps movie. Even though based on the Lethal Weapon pitch, they'll have already been Green Lanterns for a period of time. Like they'll be disillusioned, grizzled, something crazy will happen, they'll have to answer the call again. So number 9, what does that say about the plot? Because Lethal Weapon implies like a certain progression of character, it actually bears a little bit of resemblance in the Sinestro arc in the comics. So you've probably heard of him or you've seen a picture, but if you don't know his backstory, he's basically a comrade in arms who turns evil and becomes one of their greatest villains. Their greatest hero who became their greatest villain. So it's this really tragic story. But that's kind of what happens during Lethal Weapon. So the big antagonist of the movie turns out to be someone who used to be one of their comrades. So it's a very Sinestro type story. Number 8, this will make you feel a little better too. They said the story is from Geoff Johns, who did Green Lantern Rebirth, the Sinestro Corps War. He did a lot of great Green Lantern books, did a lot of great Flash books. He's kind of the guy at DC Comics that came up taking really old characters that weren't cool anymore and making them cool again. So he's doing the exact same thing right now with DC Rebirth, but we're now like full in the era of Geoff Johns at DC Films. So number 7, how is this going to tie in with the Justice League movie and the other DC films? They haven't really said when it's going to come, but when you look at the IMDb, it just reads 2020. IMDb is not the most reliable place for information like that. That's probably just a placeholder. I would expect it to fall sometime near after the second Justice League film. So that's 2019, so 2020 doesn't sound too unrealistic. But because it's so far out, we'll have already gotten 2 Justice League films, meaning they'll have formed, they'll have had their second adventure, we may have even seen Darkseid at that point, meaning that the stories are becoming more galactic in nature, providing for the entry point of the Green Lantern Corps. But that also means, as is tradition, that they'll have introduced the character before then in some sort of cameo or some small scene so that you're aware of the concept before the actual movie comes out. Most people know who Green Lantern is, but a lot of people probably have never read a Green Lantern comic book. So you just kind of need to remind the world that, hey, this is a character, this is what he looks like in this universe, we're going to be seeing a movie from him in a couple more years. Number 6, just to clarify, this is not just a Hal Jordan film, this is going to be Hal Jordan and John Stewart. Like I said, Lethal Weapon in space, that doesn't mean that they're both going to be on the edge of retirement, one's going to be suicidal. They're not going to be exactly like the Lethal Weapon characters, but they'll be partners who aren't necessarily the best of friends, but become comrades through their adventure trying to fight Sinestro or whatever big space threat there is. But when you get into the Green Lantern Corps, you start talking about the War of Light, the spectrum of emotions, so you get pretty crazy with the types of stories you can tell. So number 5, what is it going to look like? If you've seen the Guardians of the Galaxy movie and how different it feels and looks from the other Earth-based Avengers films, that's kind of be the disparity between Green Lantern Corps and the other Earth-based DC films. I mean, I think before Guardians of the Galaxy was as big a success as it eventually became, people were afraid of doing really weird things like that in movies like, hey, can we spend $150 million on a talking tree and a talking raccoon? Will people care about that? Turns out they will. So, okay, it's probably safe to do some of the crazier Green Lantern stuff as long as you do it right. So number 4, what about story arcs? Well, I think there'll be elements from Emerald Dawn, maybe Emerald Dawn 2, which just shows some of the time that Hal Jordan spent in prison after he had been parallaxed. So Emerald Dawn was sort of like a retelling of his origin story, how he became a Green Lantern. So you learn about his tutelage under Sinestro, how he learns that Sinestro is a hardliner and keeps this iron fist on his own people of Korrigar. Sinestro's exiled from the Green Lantern Corps because he's been using fear to oppress his people, when really he said that he's been using it to protect them. So that sets the stage for him learning about the rest of the emotional spectrum, creating the Sinestro Corps. There's rage, greed, fear, willpower, hope, compassion, and love. So if you've never read it, it's way too early for Blackest Night or Brightest Day or even War of Light. I feel like what they'll do is they'll set the stage for like a very, very distant future crossover movie with the Justice League, so they can actually make the title of the movie Justice League War of Light. That'd actually be a pretty epic movie to go see in like another 6 or 7 years, but that's like way, way down the road. So I think that they're just laying groundwork for that. In order to do that, you have to tell a little bit of Green Lantern's origin story, Sinestro's origin story, let everybody know who the villains and the heroes are, what the stakes are. So they probably mixed and matched a lot of elements from these really classic titles to tell you who these characters are without having to hold your hand like you're watching Sesame Street or some children's program. So it'll be a lot of fun. The Lethal Weapon just makes me feel like it'll be a slightly darker tone, slightly more adult version of Green Lantern, which I feel like we all want. Number 3, what about crossover characters? If this is going to be the first Green Lantern Corps film, are there going to be any other humans in it besides Hal Jordan and John Stewart? Well, they'll probably have a brief cameo from at least 1 or 2 Justice League members, because we'll have already seen 2 Justice League films, so they'll probably have a pre-existing relationship. The Justice League will probably know who Hal Jordan and John Stewart are, but the whole idea with doing Green Lantern Corps is that you have all of space to play with. So just like Guardians of the Galaxy isn't really connected to the Earth-based Avengers films in a really big way, I think it's going to be the same deal with Green Lantern Corps. Like, it'll be off in its own thing, even though there is connective tissue. Number 2, who are they going to cast? So I feel like casting John Stewart is going to be way easier than casting Hal Jordan, because everybody still remembers Ryan Reynolds. I'm sure Deadpool is going to make a whole bunch more Green Lantern jokes in the Deadpool sequel, but for John Stewart, I feel like Idris Elba would absolutely crush it, especially if Murtaugh in Riggs style. He's seen a lot of shit, like he's been around the block a couple times. It's not like a brand new Green Lantern. But I know there have been a lot of jokes about Armie Hammer potentially being Green Lantern. They were trolling people on Twitter just a little bit. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that they're casting him as Green Lantern. I think they were just hanging out a little bit, but people freaked out when both Jeff Johns and Joe Manganiello followed him on Twitter, but I think that was about something separate. So you guys can let me know in the comments, who do you want to play Hal Jordan and who do you want to play John Stewart? My number 1 thing, though, is that I hope we get like a short film, like a 5-minute introduction sequence or even 10 minutes, where they do Ganthet's Tale, which tells the story of the very early days of the Green Lantern Corps. So you learn about the Manhunters. You learn about how they chose to harness the power of will. You get this grand sense of history of the galaxy that's so much bigger than the stuff that you see in Justice League. It's this huge concept. It provides the back door for things like Blackest Night, Brightest Day, and even the Anti-Monitor, which, I don't think they'll ever get to him in the movies because he's such a ridiculous character. He's ridiculously overpowered. But if they ever do Crisis on Infinite Earths in the movies, I think it's more likely they would turn that into an animated movie. But you guys can let me know, do you feel like if they can get Green Lantern Corps right, and they have like a really good Justice League franchise, that they'll even try to do Crisis on Infinite Earths in like 7 or 10 years way down the road? The whole concept just sounds too crazy for them to even try, so I'll be okay if they don't. So there was so much comic book news from Marvel and DC, Defenders, all kinds of stuff that dropped today. I'll try to get through it as fast as possible. I have a Defenders behind the scenes teaser video that I'll post tomorrow morning along with a breakdown of all the information that they dumped. So it's going to be a really awesome weekend. I'll try to get through all the videos as fast as possible. While you guys wait for that to post, you can click here for the new Wonder Woman trailer, learn all about Ares, the god of war, and you can click here for my top 50 characters that are going to be in Infinity War. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.